Hello everyone, this is Dave, joined by Chris.
Hey guys.
And today we're continuing on talking about all the Ticket to Ride maps. We're talking through Ticket to Ride today. Ticket to Ride rklin, that's how you pronounce it. There's two dots over the A, so it's kind of like a so rklin. This is actually a German map, and this is a collector's edition that pays tribute to the rklin train company. They make model trains. So here we have the map of Germany. This is a vertical map, so it's gonna be kind of hard to see it all. I'll actually loosen up the camera here and we'll pan up and down to see how this map goes, and I'll zoom in. You can see some of the different cities. So this particular game, this version of Ticket to Ride, some people describe this as the gamer version of Ticket to Ride. It is currently out of print because it is a collector's edition, but don't worry, there is still a German map available. And this game introduces some new elements. The first thing that I want to talk about is in this card, this is all of the train cards, despite the fact that they are the same color, like these reds. If you look, each one is its own model. So here is this one, and then if you look at another red one, it's like that. So you're going to be, and here's another one. So they're all different. You're going to be more reliant upon these symbols in the upper corner. So this one, definitely, for those of you that are colorblind, they cater to you with these nice symbols in the corners. But you have unique images for each of the different types of trains in the card. So that's one of the neat things that's cool about this. Two new colors that we have for the game. We have white, which Chris has on the left, and on the right of your screen you'll see purple. And the other three colors are black, red, and yellow, which just so happen to be the colors of the German flag. So in this game, we don't have the longest train route to award. In fact, we have an award for the most destination tickets, gives you 10 points. And it's a nice cardboard tile that you get opposed to a card like in some of the other ones. Another interesting thing, instead of wooden scoring discs, we actually have these little plastic buttons that have the M for rklin on them. So those will be going around the scoring track. Let's see. So the other big thing that this game introduces is passengers, and I'm going to talk about how those work in a little bit, and there are going to be some new cards that are going to be coming out. So we have the traditional locomotive cards. These are wilds, and I'll talk about these in a little bit about what I think of them. But there's a new card that is called a wild +4. And these particular cards can be brought into your hand, and they will be used for claiming routes that are 4 spaces or larger only. So this is going to help you in completing some of the larger spaces on the board, because there are a number of them, especially if you look on the right side of the map. And then finally, there are these passenger cards that can be taken into your hand. So setup for this game. We have a number of these merchandise tokens that are placed on the board. You'll see these 2s that are here, and then here's a 3, and below them in a stack there's a 2 and a 1. So they go down in value. There are some other ones that are worth more that are red cities over on the side. You'll see some red ones, and then finally over in Berlin, they are worth the most, starting at 7 and going on down. So we don't need to go over how to play Ticket to Ride, but I'm going to show you about some of these neat elements that are in the game. So a couple things: if there are ever 3 of these passenger cards out on the road, just like locomotives, the market will reset. And again, talking about claiming routes, these wild cards can only be used in claiming routes of 4 spaces or more. And the interesting thing is, if these are out in the market, you could take this on your first draw and still draw another one. You wouldn't be able to take a regular locomotive as your second pull, but you can actually draw 2 of these 4+ ones to use because they're not as powerful as the other ones. These are limited as to how they can be used. So let's talk about the passengers because that's the big draw for this game and how it works. And so if I look at my hand of cards and I decide that I'm going to play my 3 red cards and I'm going to claim this particular route right here. 1, 2, 3. Once I do that, I have the option of taking one of my passengers and putting it on the board in either one of these cities, either Magdeburg or Berlin in this case. And let's say I decide to put it right here. And so I have 3 of these that I can put out during the game. And you can see they say rklin on the side, but they're actually like their little suitcases. And over the course of the game, I'm going to be putting trains out. Chris, you want to put one over there? Let's say, for example, I have this one here, this particular route, and maybe I had taken this one down here, but Chris had claimed this one if we're playing a lower thing. So what's going to happen is on my turn, I have the options of doing what I would normally be able to do during Ticket to Ride. I could either draw cards from the market. I could draw destination tickets, which an interesting thing, I'm going to talk about those in just a moment. I can claim a route like I did normally with the option of putting a passenger out, or I can move the passenger. And this is where the game gets kind of interesting because we can move the passenger along the route as far as our route goes, you know, following along. It has to be a contiguous one. And each city that we stop over, we're going to pick up these merchandise tokens and score points. Now, in our example, if you look here, I have this route from Magdeburg down to Frankfurt, and I would probably want to have it longer, but this for demonstration purposes. And Chris has taken this spot right here. So I could choose to move my passenger, and I would move him along the route as far as I can, following my own trains till where it ends, picking up the top tickets along the way. But I can play these passenger tickets, and for each one that I play, I can cross over one of my opponent's routes. So for example, I say I'm going to move my passenger, I'll discard this card, and I would move him along here. I would stop off, pick up this one, I would move down to the next one, pick up this one, and finally where I ended up at my passenger, I would take this last token, and this particular passenger has now done and out of the game. And then I would add up the points for the tokens, which would have been here 9 points. I would score 9 points on the board, and I would keep these tokens in front of me till the end of the game in case we ever needed to recount. Now, if you notice on these, there is a decreasing value because where that 4 was, there's now a 3. Where that 2 is now been claimed. You see the 3 is now a 2. And if I had decided to start over in Berlin, any city that you start in, you do not take the merchandise token there. So I could have possibly wanted to claim somewhere else and looped around and gone back to Berlin to try to get that 7. So that's one of the that's the big thing with passengers with this game. Now the other thing that's really neat in this one is at the beginning of the game, and anytime you take tickets, you take 4. But there are 2 different stacks of destination tickets. We have ones that have blue backs and we have ones that have red backs. And I'm going to go down here. The blue ones, if we look, this is upside down. But, Chris, you flipping it around here?
Yep.
I just can't see where you're at. Okay, so in the corner, this will tell you that how many points there are. It's going to be greater than 5, between 5 and 11 points. And the other ones are going to be longer. They are going to be worth up to 20, I think it's like up to 22 points, between 12 and 22 points. So you have some control over the destination tickets that you pick. So you can say, hey, I'm going to take 4 tickets, give me 2 longs, 2 shorts. I could be like 3 long, 1 short. However, I want to have my combinations, and then the ones that I don't select are going to be going back on the bottom, and you have to keep at least one. I think you have to keep 2 at the beginning of the game. So, but that's how that's the biggest thing about the passengers and how it works in this game. So, let's see. We'll get into some impressions and some experiences with this. Now, Chris, you've only played this one time, but can give me your initial impressions, because I've got probably more to say about this one than you might.
Yeah, so we'll get mine out of the way. I liked it. I see what it's trying to do, but the setup is a little tedious, and it just seems clunky with how the passengers have to actually work and how you have to move them. It just seems overly clunky for what you're trying to do.
Fair enough. Now, my impression with this, I will talk about the setup, and the setup is a little bit tedious. I don't like these cardboard tokens can get knocked over. In fact, I think you saw me during the demonstration. I was putting trains down. They get knocked all over the place. Since I didn't like that, it is a little bit of a pain in the butt to sort these things out and put them on the board. I will say this, that production-wise, the insert gives you slots to put these passenger tokens in, and just bag them up, because every time you open up the box, they're all over. And if you lose one, essentially you render the game, you're going to cripple the game or make it where it's not playable, especially if you miss one of these 2s, because if you forget about it, then later on it's like, oh, well, I should have been able to have 2 points, and 2 points could make or break the game if it's really, really close. This one here, there's a couple spots on the map that actually have triple routes to be able to go in and claim. So at higher player counts, there's a couple of cities over there that it will allow multiple players to get into. We have the ability to connect to other countries. So you can see down in the corner we have France, so we can actually connect country to country. This game, this particular version, I don't mind playing it. The play itself is fine, but I will say that the way that the passengers operate in this one is a little bit hokey, because you have to remember that when you claim a route, you have the option then of putting a passenger out. And so you have to be really particular where you're going to put them out there. And then the other thing is, how long are you going to let it sit out there before you activate it to go and get all the points? Because there is a little bit of a press your luck aspect. It's like the longer that they sit out there and somebody sees your route, if they have something that's going to be intersecting through another city, for example, if Chris was deciding to go from Cologne down to Nuremberg or whatever, and he was going to pass through this city, he might want to, if he has a passenger sitting over here, he may want to move first to grab that 4, opposed to waiting for 3. Well, the longer that you let something sit out, you're running the risk of your opponents coming through cross routes or playing passenger cards and using part of your own route to snag up some passenger or some merchandise tokens along the way. So you have to be mindful of that when you're playing the game. But you get them out on the board, and then they're sitting there. But you have to remember when you can put them out is when you claim a route. And so sometimes you're forgetting to you forget to put them out until late in the game.
It's easy to do.
Right. Or so you have to be mindful of that. I think besides the setup kind of being a pain, and I don't like the cardboard tokens, the thing that I don't really care about is with these locomotives, because if you look at the border is hardly rainbow, and the fact that each one of these has different images, it's hard to tell which ones are locomotives. So you'd have to look up in the corner to see, oh, that's a locomotive, and so there's the symbol right there. But if you're trying to quickly look through your hand or look at what's on the market, you have to look a little bit closer to see which ones are which, because, like I said, there's 100 and some odd different cards that are out there. So this one, like I said, this was done as a collector's edition. So it's currently not available. Fortunately for me, my copy the kids got me for Christmas a few years ago. So I've actually had this one, and I've gotten a chance to play it. But this was actually redone into Ticket to Ride Germany, which was Zug um Zug Deutschland, which when we talk about Ticket to Ride Germany, I'll give a little bit of information about that. But overall, this is my impression. You can score some points this way. The map itself has some really neat things, but I would not say that you have to go out and seek this one out because of the fact that it's fetching some pretty high dollar amounts now. It's not worth it. Not when there's Ticket to Ride Germany that's out there.
But if you have it, it's a nice thing to have.
If you have it, yes. And if you do, and I think that the passengers in this one is kind of an acquired taste. Moving some things on there, throwing in an extra step is okay. But overall, this is the rklin map, and it's pretty cool. So it's not one that I bring out a lot, mostly because of some of the production qualities that I talked about. The setup is kind of a pain. The good thing is about this is that where the tokens are, where they go, there are colored dots that are on there. So that does make it okay. But having to actually sort them all out, stack them all up can take a little bit and can be a pain. But the bigger issue is with the cards. They decided to do something cool, pay tribute to this company, and they make the locomotive cards are a little bit different. And the Wild +4 cards that are in here, I don't think it really went over very well because we don't see it in any of the other maps to this point.
No,
so just something that was in here. So anyways, that's my thoughts on rklin. This is probably one that I've talked about more because I've played it more than Chris has.
Yeah.
But we're talking through this series, so if it's something that's interested, maybe you can trade for it. If you're lucky to see it on a shelf and this is kind of appeals to you, I would say grab it. But I wouldn't go paying the inflated aftermarket prices that people may have out there in marketplace and online. So that is Ticket to Ride rklin. We'll talk more about this map and a little bit more strategies when we get to Germany. All right, talk to you. Bye-bye.
See ya.